And today's guest on the Financial Planner Live podcast is Jack Dudley. Jack is a financial planner who moved from one career to another. He actually started in the armed forces, ended up becoming a teacher, and is now a financial planner. And we're going to talk about his transition, what he's learned in his 3-year journey of working within financial planning. I think you're going to love this episode. So Jack, thank you so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're absolutely welcome. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing your journey. The podcast is all about careers within the financial planning profession. We are at a stage, aren't we, in the financial planning profession where we're trying to attract new people to it, whether that's young people coming from school or coming from university. We're trying to create this kind of pathway a little bit similar to accountants and solicitors. And I'd argue that we're struggling a little bit on that because there only seems to be self-employed options out there. Me and a chap called Rob also spoke about this quite recently on the podcast episode, which will be released actually by the time this one goes out. We're talking about the difference between employed and self-employed. But you transitioned from a different career into financial planning, didn't you? So why don't you kick things off, Jack? What were you doing before you became a financial planner? What was your background and experience?
To be honest, Sam, I'm a bit of a mutt in terms of what I've done, where I've been, where I've been living, where I've grown up, all that kind of thing. So we'll be here till Christmas, I think, if I gave everybody my full life story. But effectively, right before going into financial advice, I was a teacher. So I went through an ex-forces teacher training program, and then within that, it allowed me to get a degree in teaching and education, and then I spent 2 or 3 years in the classroom at secondary level teaching science. Lots of parts of that are great. Lots of parts of that are not so great. I think as any other teacher that you speak to would tell you, they've got some huge challenges in that industry. My wife's a teacher, so I'm very much on the pulse with what's going on and how she kind of has to deal with everything. But there's elements of it that I really enjoyed, and the relationships that I built with kids going through sort of GCSE level 15, 16, old enough to have, a proper conversation with and get a bit of sort of lip back from them and a bit of banter type stuff, which I really enjoyed it. The bit I didn't like so much was just the fact that it's just, you realize that schools are businesses. Even in the state system, it's horrendous. Everything is results driven. Everything is a case of, we need to make sure kids are doing this, and this. We need to be hitting these grades and that grade and all the rest of it. And it just becomes a bit of a chore, and you're kind of just pulling a water wheel type thing. You feel like you're somebody that's just there trying to get the kids through the system. And I just thought that actually from a material point of view, from a going through, you could sort of stand at the front of the classroom and you look out at everybody and you think these kids don't want to be here. Like none of them are that interested in what we're talking about. But I liked the fact that I could stand there for an hour and get to know them and speak to them and find out about them. And it's a real skill that clearly I wasn't very good at the time because I was obviously still really teaching. Kind of getting to know the kids and what works and what makes them tick and, understanding their backgrounds. So a lot of that, I thought, I'm good with numbers. I'm good with relationships and speaking to people and actually finding out about them, what they're good at and, what they enjoy and what, the other side of that, what they don't. And I thought there's just something better out there almost, or something that I'm more suited to than this. So that's kind of where I made a little bit of a sort of fork in my own road. Yeah, absolutely. A few friends.
You came from the forces though into teaching. So how long were you in the forces and what part of it?
So I was in the Royal Engineers for about just over 4 years. I did sort of the minimum and got out. You can see where this is going, can't you? It's just done a few different bits and pieces. But no, I absolutely loved that. Towards the end of it, a lot of it was around sort of newer guys coming through. And kind of helping us. I worked more on sort of a tech side of things. So we did a lot of mapping, imagery, kind of management of the ground and the air and all that kind of stuff, which was quite interesting, quite geographic based. And obviously going towards the later end of my time there were a few young guys coming through and helping them kind of adapt to what we do and how we do it. So there was always in the back of my mind, I thought, I was probably, how old was I then? 23, 24 at that point, maybe 25. and it took me a while to realize what I enjoy and what I'm good at. And I thought, actually, I quite like this element of it. So there was a program that the MOD were running in line with the Department for Education, which was a troops to teachers course. So ex-military could jump on that for a 2-year bachelor's degree, in-depth kind of intensive program. And I thought, you know what, I'll do that, please. I was leaving anyway, so I thought, why not? Let's give that a go. So I get hammered actually by my mates quite a lot, and people that I speak to, and they all kind of go, oh, where do you live now? What are you doing now? What's your kind of career path now? All that kind of stuff, which is, part and parcel of it, I guess. But I've really enjoyed taking the time to focus on what I'm good at and what I'm not so good at, and what I like and what I don't like. And I think kind of linking into the bigger question at the moment of how do we get more people in, I think from a personality perspective, that's really important.
Well, I'm a big fan that life is a tapestry, and we all go down different routes, or we stay on the same road. I've got friends who stayed in the same jobs for 20 years.
Oh, really?
And yeah, same company. They might have progressed into different roles within the company, but they kind of stayed in the same lane the whole time.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that they're most happiest of people. And I do think, like, when you look, I've had a career in recruitment. That was 15 years. I ran a recruitment business. I built a business. I built a financial planner life. So it was intrapreneurial within it. Now, people often say, like, oh, should I stay here? It looks bad on my CV if I move. These days, it doesn't. Like, having a bit of variety and moving around different companies and seeing how different companies work and different professions work and different industries work and different types of roles actually becomes part of growing your skill set, growing your experience, and different challenges. I mean, working in the armed forces and then working in a school, they're fantastic backgrounds to build that discipline process. It's public service. You are building a huge skill set that you're then thinking, right, okay, you may not want to stay in it, and that's cool, but you move on to something else, and then you move on to something else, and now you're ending up in financial planning. So you got into financial planning at what age?
So I started studying around, I was just thinking about this actually before we spoke. I think it must have been 27, 28.
Cool.
So
yes,
I wrote my first of the RO exams in the summer of, it was COVID actually. It was 2020. So 27, 28 I'd have been. So yeah, quite, I say late. I don't know. Is that late? I don't know. I guess from your perspective, what's a young advisor? What age would you say?
Well, there's only about 150 advisors under the age of 25 or something in the UK, to give you an idea.
Yeah.
Can't remember the amount that are under 30, but it's not much more.
So would you say, in your opinion, that somebody that is 30 or younger, I guess if we're kind of putting a bar out there, if somebody said to you, he's a young advisor, she's a young advisor, whatever it might be, what would you say their age was?
If they were a young advisor?
Yeah, if they were described to you as a young advisor, what would you kind of put your finger on and guess their age?
20s.
Okay.
20s, yeah.
Okay.
And to me, that's cool. I think we should have advisors at all different ages.
Yeah.
I think historically, it's always been like you haven't got enough grey hair, or you don't have enough life experience. Yeah. I think age and life experience, two separate things. And skill set, two separate things.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, someone could be 23 years old with the most insane skill set and drive and ambition, intelligence, emotional intelligence. I think sometimes we might measure the wrong things. You might measure IQ against EQ. And if someone's got a really high IQ but really low EQ, are they going to be a really good face-to-face advisor? Regardless of age, that doesn't matter. Experience tends to build EQ because you can actually build EQ, can't you? You can build it up as opposed to IQ. Like, you do a brain training game, you just get really good at doing brain training games. You don't actually increase your IQ. But with respect to EQ, you can build it all up. So when I look at people who are younger, I'm thinking, well, okay, great. You want to be an advisor? No problem, right? So tell me about your life. Tell me what you've been up to. Tell me about your experiences. Tell me why you want to be a financial planner. Tell me what you would do in this situation. How would you win new business? And when you very quickly sort of turn over these stones and these characteristics or traits that a good financial planner has, That's what we're looking for. So if they score 10 out of 10 on that, we give a shit what age they are.
Yeah.
I'll be like, right, I'll back you because you're showing all the attributes required to be a great financial planner. Now, if you're showing 2 or 3, I say you probably want to start somewhere in administration, power planning. You might want to kind of move on up in that path, get some client-faced experience. You might want to go and work in another profession, another industry for a bit. So you might want to go and work in recruitment for a couple of years and do a full 360 recruitment role where you're going to learn some sales, you're going to learn some marketing, how to use LinkedIn, and how to win new clients, win new business, and manage process from start to finish. It's the transferable skills that I think are the most important thing, not the age. Now, can you teach those transferables? Can you teach those skills? I think you can. So if someone doesn't have them and you bring them into the business, I think you can. But they have to be shadowing, mentoring, and watching and doing. They have to physically be doing it. I don't think you learn to be a salesman by reading a book, for instance. I think you learn to be a good salesman, in this example. I know people don't want to say financial planner as a salesman, but you know what I mean. I think you're a good salesman by getting out and making mistakes and failing a lot, and learning from your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one thing you mentioned there actually that I was kind of wanted to come back to very quickly, was around when you were starting this process. I cast my mind back a few years ago of speaking to people and where do I go from here? How do I start getting into this industry? And I quite often disagree with the notion that going into an admin role onto power planning and then onto advising is always the right thing. It might be for some people. And I think as what you're kind of referring to almost is being able to give people those skills and work on them so that the skill set they need to be a power planner is incredibly different for somebody that they need to become a financial advisor or a financial planner. So I think there are kind of not, spats or such, but I kind of had a sort of lot of people coming back with comments, and I see it nowadays of people where I was a few years ago. Where do I start? I want to be an advisor. And quite often you find that the reply is go into an admin role first, learn how the industry works. Now, that's fine. I don't disagree with the idea of learning how the business works and developing the specific skills, but as long as that's done for that reason, because I would be a terrible power planner, horrendous. I could probably list every power planner I know would know an awful lot more about financial advice than I do. And I couldn't write a report or do the sort of technical side of things that they do well. But, without speaking for them, I'm sure that they would also say, I really don't want to be an advisor. So I'm not sure actually that the two line up. And I don't think it's a ladder progression. I think it's more of a case of when I first started at, Resolve, for example, I kind of went in there thinking I'm happy to do the admin side of things and learn. And I was quite quickly told, you're not going to be doing that because you're going to hate it and you won't be good at it because you're going to be good at something else. And I think that's really brave from an employer's perspective. If that's, the kind of conversation we're having is being able to kind of, say that to somebody and say, look, I don't think you're suited to this. You're going to be beneficial to me as a business and as an employer. If I put you in this role, I understand and appreciate, you're happy to kind of work your way up type thing, but I don't think it works in this industry, Sam. I just think you could find some people end up leaving because they can't progress quickly enough. They can't get out of the role that they've been forced to do, i.e. power planning for a few years. And then it's like, okay, well then we'll train you to be an advisor. And they think, do you know what? Sod this. I can't be bothered to go through that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
My thoughts are exactly the same. I think, one thing first, okay, you don't have to go down the admin power planner route to be a financial planner.
Yeah.
But it does go back to, okay, well, if you're going to go into being a financial planner, you better have the right mindset, attitude, skills, life experience, I think. I think you do need to have all those things, right? These are the things that you need to have in spades. Coming straight out of university and walking straight into a financial advisor role, I think that's completely unrealistic.
Exactly.
You wouldn't walk out of university and become an accountant or a solicitor. You would go through the process. You'd cut your teeth, in understanding the business, going through the process, doing your qualifications alongside it, and working towards the goal of becoming a financial planner. And I like the process that way. So if someone comes in straight from uni and straight into admin, or anybody actually, but running alongside that was a career development plan that got them towards the goal of what they were looking for. So let's say they wanted to become a financial planner, but they didn't hold the qualifications. So it's like, right, great. Well, you're going to come in, you're going to work on a trainee financial planner career development plan. Most companies haven't got that. They just chuck you in an admin role with absolutely zero ability to transfer your skills from admin to power planning to financial advice. It's just if a role comes up, we'll put you there, but we're probably not going to move you because we need you in that position. And that's because there's a lot of small companies that don't invest in career development plans properly. And this is the problem that we actually have.
But do you think
So I
that's
don't
down
see the problem with.
Sorry, so do you think that's down to money? Do you think that's down to the investability of spending? I'll come on to that later, but
Yeah, I think what we have is a lot of smaller businesses.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in those businesses running those businesses are now average age 55 years old. I think they've seen a lot of change in the profession, and they aren't building businesses to grow. They're building businesses now to exit and have the lifestyle that they need. So there's a handful of entrepreneurial businesses that want to grow. Why would a business of an advisor at say 55 years old average age be really thinking about investing in the next generation? Really? They want to, don't get me wrong, and there are a handful of out there that actually do. But it's the more entrepreneurial growing companies are the ones that are putting these career development plans in place. So it kind of also goes back to the individual. Let's say you go into a firm, you go in as an admin, you've been promised to become a financial planner, get your head down, understand some of the skills. Once you get a year under your belt and a few qualifications, and you might have to do those qualifications in the background. Because again, these career development plans, not all firms will actually push you to go down a study route and to upskill you and bring you in front of clients and all of that. My advice to anybody who's sitting in admin or power planning and feels like they want to leave the profession because they're not becoming a financial planner is get down all your transferable skills, get your qualifications to level 4, because you've got, let's say, a year or 2 years worth of experience within the financial planning profession, and market yourself out to all those companies that you want to work for as a financial advisor and outline what all your transferable skills are and why you want to become a financial planner. Problem is, someone might sit in that role and go, I'm not being promoted. And it's like, well, you can go and find another job then. Go and find another job opportunity out there. Get on the phone to a load of recruiters. Who's hiring? Who's not hiring? Don't just rely on recruitment consultants, because recruitment consultants don't have every single job out there, right? So I give people there's a how to get a job in financial planning on my YouTube. It's a structure for marketing yourself to get a job in financial planning with or without experience. Yeah, and it works. It works. So admin, power planner, financial advisor has its place. Absolutely has its place. Walking straight into a financial planner position has its place. We just need more opportunities like that. There aren't as many. And I think it is down to either the risk involved in investing in somebody because it takes them time to bring clients in and therefore justify their salary. So it's a short-term mindset. Again, maybe because someone isn't thinking long-term anymore about the growth of their business.
Yeah, perhaps. And I think you're right. I think it's that background experience, isn't it? You either gain it as a youngster and earn your stripes, the traditional route, or you come in potentially older, late 20s, such as some, like me, for example, and you kind of got that from other areas and you've developed as a person. I'm a firm believer that we don't fully grow mentally and emotionally, probably emotionally ever, to be honest, but to get to a stage where you understand processes and understand people, sort of 25, 26. So I think if you're still younger than that, then perhaps, you're right there, Sam, in that, it can take a little while to kind of go through. But I'm a firm believer in, I think a lot of the problems that people are having at the moment is proving worth. So if I put myself now as a business owner, if I was to own my own firm now, I would probably want to find somebody that's at least done 1 or 2 exams off their own back. And I get that it's easy for me to sit here and say, just go and do the exams. They are pricey. I did all mine myself. I'd managed to sort of negotiate with my wife at the time to say, look, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore. And she's thinking, Christ, what are you doing now? And it's a case of like, this is, I really want to do this. I've figured it out. I'm there. I promise you, this is the last sort of, thing I needed to kind of uncover about myself in a way. And I said, right, here's the deal. I'll do all my exams in one summer holiday, because obviously in the teaching world, we get a sort of 6-7 week break. And we'll, at that point, I'm then in a stronger position as well to go to, going back to you saying about the fear of changing and doing different jobs, you kind of worry about what people think around you. But having that kind of, right, Mr. and Mrs. Employer, here I am, here's my level 4, I've done it all myself. That compared to being, can I please have a job in your firm and I'm willing to work my way up, but I don't have anything yet to prove to you that I'm going to be here for a long time. Yeah, I think that's key. And I know it's not cheap. I think it probably, with all materials and stuff, I'm quite lucky in that I good at exams. I'm just quite good at doing them. So I managed to get through them all first time. And I know that's a really privileged position because there's some things I'm not so good at. And it still cost me probably about 2.5, 3 grand at the time with all the sort of study guides and stuff. So it's not cheap. But I do think there's a huge amount of value in that. And I think if we're kind of coming back to the bigger question of how do we get people through the door? How do we become more marketable as individuals to appeal to an IFA, to appeal to a small firm that's not the academy route, for example? You've got to stand out from people that are trying to do the same thing. The salary part is a problem for sure, especially if you're coming on without a client bank. Obviously, you're costing that employer, thousands of pounds until you're at a point that you're not costing them money through client acquisition, and that's difficult, and that's obviously a different conversation. But that start point, that kind of, I'm really stuck, I don't know how to get in. I think if you're older and you're doing other things and you're taking a few years out of university to learn and become, who you are, using that time to potentially then do an exam or two. I'm not saying complete the level 4. I think that's quite unrealistic, but at least get halfway or, do the first 3 or whatever, because it just makes you look better. I think. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I just think it makes you look.
100%. This is why I set up the Financial Planner Life Academy. So the Financial Planner Life Academy is separate from the academies that are attached to like M&G or St James's Place or Quilter, or attached to a firm, because and every one of those has its place. My academy doesn't give you a job at the end as a financial planner. What it does is it gives you the knowledge and the skills to be able to market yourself out to a firm that would take you on, so they have less investment and less risk, and they see that you're serious. Someone will come into my academy for $19.99 a month and don't even have to leave their job. They can get straight into training and development around the qualifications and learn some of the practical skills and soft skills, and start to build community and start to ask me questions, or people in the community questions, and start to get a feel for the profession as a whole. Because also as well, when you're outside looking in, you don't quite know, do I go IFA? Do I go self-employed? Do I go employed? What's restricted? What's cash flow forecasting? You haven't really got a clue. So it gives us a kind of environment where someone can learn and then go, do I actually want to do this or not? And if they do, they start to pursue it a little bit further. But if they don't, they can just walk away and it's $19.99 and they haven't taken a massive risk. And I saw that as a massive gap in the profession, which is why I created the Financial Planner Life Academy. Going back on your earlier point, because I did think a little bit, you said about money. These firms not wanting to grow or invest in people, for instance. Is it about money? Pre-RDR, okay, Retail Distribution Review, there was like 250,000 advisors. But most of them are like linked into the banks as well. Yeah. And the banks were the ones that employed people. And then in there, you could go into a bank and you could start as a cashier, a personal banker, or a mortgage advisor, whatever. But the training and development was insane. And then you could move into financial advice on a restricted type basis really easily. But they were employed. And at the time, right, you had all these people in the employed roles, Prudential and all this sort of stuff as well, Aviva. But you find it difficult if you wanted to move from those product providers into the IFA world, for example, right? Most of those were self-employed. So when RDR happened and all these people got let go from the banks because the banks couldn't justify having them on anymore because of the fee structure, they were all looking for jobs. And most of them had to go self-employed. So it's always really been a self-employed profession. And when people go into a business employed with advisors that have built firms, say, historically self-employed, their mindset is, well, you're probably going to come in, I'm going to train you up, give you a load of money as a salary, and you're going to leave and set your own business up. So there is, I think, as well, that mentality that they worry that people are going to come in, they spend all that money on training them, and then they'll leave. Of which it happens quite a lot. But again, it comes down to, well, what are you doing about securing that person in your business? What are you offering them that's interesting, engaging, a career development plan? What's keeping them hooked into your business and not going elsewhere? But again, it comes down to, like, they don't really have an understanding of what that is and what that looks like and how to construct that within a business. And do they want it? Have they got the appetite to do that? Do they see themselves there in 5 to 10 years enough to take on some people who are inexperienced? And that's the problem we have, I think, as well. Yeah. So what was the question you just had? Because I went off on a tangent there.
I can't remember because I was just engrossed in your answer there to what we were talking about. But I think it was more a case of, like how the amount of sort of one-man bands that are out there in this profession compared to anything else is it's just incomparable.
Yeah.
And there has to be a reason for that. And I think, having spoken to a few, obviously I've not been in this industry long at all, so pre-RDR stuff for me is, I ain't got a clue. I don't know it. I've never been involved in it. I've only known the way that the system works at the moment. And going through that, I think a lot of advisors that I speak to are either, and I think there's a stat, I think somebody on the podcast the other day actually mentioned how many percentages of firms are 3 or 4 people or fewer, or whatever it might be. And I think the reason for that is the nature of the job. So that you've got to trust somebody to come into your world, to come into people that are, that you've known as an individual for a long, long time. And you're going to be trusting that you're bringing somebody on that has the same values as you, has the same beliefs as you, works the same way, has the same way of kind of communicating. You've got to fit the mold to the firm, but also to the actual employer themselves. And I think that's probably where the big the national companies, rather, your SJPs and Quilters and Schroders of this world have a little bit more of an advantage, because they can take that risk on a little bit more because they're just much, much bigger. So there's lots of things I think for employers to consider. And I think I've spoken to a lot of company owners and firm owners that have had staff and now don't have staff. And there's 1 or 2 different reasons generally why that works out. And it's firstly from a client acquisition perspective. And then they're kind of sat there going, did I do enough to train them to be better at it? Or were they just not very good at it? So that's one thing. And then the second thing is of course, the salary expectations as well. Having gone through that myself, I understand why that's difficult, because you can't, if you're an IFA firm and you're managing, I don't know, anything from 50 to 100 million, for example, you can't necessarily give a load of clients away, because ultimately you're losing some of your personal income as well. So I think it's like a really difficult car to drive, in that the clutch bite point's really narrow. So you're constantly stalling it, because you kind of have to find, it's such a narrow balance to kind of go, I need to take a bit of a risk here and employ somebody to grow. But so many things have to be right on both sides that it makes it almost impossible. And I often sit here and I think I'm quite lucky in a way, in the way that I found my way in. I'm very lucky in my setup at the moment. I've just gone self-employed because I've had the support behind me to build up enough of an AUM or an FUM, whatever we want to use, so now enable me to cut that tie. But I couldn't have done it on my own. No way. There's too much to do. There's too much to learn. And I think, having done the exams beforehand, you kind of go in, and it kind of comes back to my earlier point. You go in at a point where you say, right, mold those soft skills for me. I've done the hard skills bit. I've passed the exams. Your investment in me now is just you letting me know how I need to act in this industry and what I need to develop. And you kind of start at a higher point. If you go in with 1 or 2 and you still got to do the level 4, you're costing potentially that employer money before they've even got to the bit that's important to them. Does that make sense?
Oh, you're bang on the money. So Paul Taylor came on the podcast, and Paul Taylor cold called himself to 100 million. And he does training and development.
I listened to that yesterday, actually.
Yeah, great episode, right?
Yeah.
And Paul Taylor is on the same camp as me, right? Yeah, you get all these people who are qualified coming into the profession, but they don't know how to do the job. So there is no training and development that is on an internal basis, because the advisors are so busy and they can't train and develop people. So you really need to bring those external people in, or have some form of community that can teach those skills, but to not only teach them, but to mentor them, to get people to check in with them, to go on the journey with them, to teach them how to market, how to use LinkedIn, how to approach businesses to offer financial advice, actually old school sales, getting itself out there, business development. It's the most important part of this job. I mean, if I had 5 people coming into a business, right, and they had all the attributes and the mindset, and there was all there, but I taught them what to do, how to do it, and why they should do it that way, and set them some targets and all of that kind of thing, and monitored it, you would have people fired up and geared up to want to do it. If they came in and understood that it's a strong business development type role, and you need to go out and win business, and this is how we do it, and we're going to invest in your training and development to do it, that would work a treat. And that, like, I've just joined Hoxton, and Hoxton do exactly that. So when you bring somebody in on what they call pathway, especially when you go out to somewhere like Dubai, right, it's not easy, it's hard. And you have to have a certain mindset to approach business development out there. And there is more than one way to skin a cat out there. They do brilliantly on lead generation, so they can put leads in front of new advisors. That's another piece of the puzzle. Not enough investment in marketing for these smaller firms. So they're not out there, they're not generating leads for new people coming in, right? Some new business for them to get stuck into, because, there's only so many breakfast meetings that you can approach. So yeah, going back to it, like, training and development on an internal basis, I think is really, really important. That's massively lacking in the profession and always has done, right? Because they're smaller businesses and there's a cost to do that.
Yeah, but if you
Um,
remove, what I'm saying is if you remove the cost of getting somebody qualified, and hence why I firmly
yep,
believe that taking a few years to
yep,
do the exams yourself, if you
yep.
say, all right, an employer looks at me as a brand new person, not done the exams, right, I need to pay 5 grand potentially for that. I've then got to do the training for this, and then we're starting. So the start
I'm
line,
with you.
one thing I was told at the start of all this was the exams are just your ticket to the party. Once you're through the door, that's your start line.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
can cut costs down to a potential employer by doing some
yeah.
stuff off your own back, I get it. I get it's not cheap and it's not easy to do, and you've got to really be disciplined to self-study, and people have got work and kids and wives and husbands and whatever it might be. It's not an easy thing to do. But I think if you're willing and able to do it, not only does it show a quality in an individual, but it also makes your life a lot easier when you're talking to employers.
I've always said, again, it goes back. I've always said it. If you hold some qualifications before you approach new, before you market yourself out to wanting to enter the profession, it's going to look a million times better.
100%.
So I say to people like, get a qualification under your belt, get into our academy, learn some of the soft skills and practical skills, familiarize yourself with the different things that advisors use, the tools that they use, the market itself, educate yourself, and then approach them. If you approach a firm in a way that's like, I want to become a financial advisor, I've heard you crying out for people, I've got no qualifications, I've got no understanding of what it is you do, but I just heard I could earn over £100,000 in this profession, I'd really like to join it. People are like, well, you need to go away and like really understand it. But again, it's a financial education piece. This is what we're doing here with the Financial Planner Life. Someone might come here now instead, learn about it and go, right, so that's what I need to do. So I'm with you 100%. Get your head down, get some qualifications, get that financial planning career education as well,
Yeah.
and have some talking pieces as to why is it you want to join the profession, why is it you want to get in there, what is it about you that's suited to the role, what do you see yourself doing long term, which route do you want to go down, and why, where areas do you think you might need some help. And so it's a bit of self-reflection as well is required
Massively.
to be able to sit down with somebody. You can't just go cap in hand. It's not an industry or a profession like that. It's one where you've got to go with something, which is why I was saying, like, when you've got that, then you market yourself, then you target specific companies that you want to work for. What did you do then? How did you get in?
To get started initially, you mean?
Yeah.
So I basically used the CII. I don't know if they still do it. They did an e-mentoring service. So
Right.
they offer a variety of advisors that give up their time, and they will basically say, I will be a mentor to you, for example. So you basically have a directory of advisors. I think you could filter it by area or whatever. Anyway, so I ended up kind of sending out a load of messages, a bit of a cold calling type thing, which it kind of is. Hi, I'm Jack. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking to do. I've looked into your business. I've looked at you as an individual. I think you'd be somebody that could help me. I know it sounds really corporate and generic and unpersonal, but you get my point. And I was lucky enough that a certain individual reached back to that and said, look, I think I could help you. I think I was halfway through my exams at this point, because again, I thought, if I want someone to take me seriously, I need to have at least shown that I'm here and I'm willing to kind of take their time. So I thought, right, I'll do the first 3 exams and then I'll see what happens. Ended up having loads of conversations with him. He gave up a lot of his time, and I'll be forever thankful for that. And he ended up being part of a network, which is what Resolve are part of now. And he put me in touch with the guys that run Resolve and said, look, started speaking to Jack. I can't take him on at the moment because it's just not something I'm looking to do. I know you guys are. I think he'd be a perfect fit. And that was it. And that led to me getting in touch with the guys there, and they invited me up for a cup of tea and a chat and said, yeah, we'll take you. You fit exactly what we're looking for. You get on well with everybody. We're quite a young-ish firm in terms of average age. Come and join us type thing. So there's an awful lot of, and I think, again, this is why it always comes back to, if somebody's coming out of uni and is thinking of coming into this profession, I would probably advise that it's going to be a different experience than it would be if they took a few years to get a bit more under them. I'm one of these people that doesn't think that university is life experience. I don't at all. I don't think it's real. And I think nowadays kids coming out of school are probably it's going to flip a little bit back to what it used to be a few years ago, in that potentially the trades and college world are going to be kind of the more popular choice over university, because you get that experience from other stuff. You're in day-to-day work, you're doing things that are a little bit more real. I don't think it's real, sitting on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, or even midweeks at university in halls getting pissed. That, to me, is just not real life. So anyway, so that's kind of the one takeaway I have, I think, from all this is taking the time to do it in the right way.
From university as well, right? You don't have to go straight into financial planning. Of course, you can go out there and apply, right? But there are loads of different financial institutions out there, right? There's loads of different financial companies. I worked for Aviva. Here's an interesting one, right? I did a podcast with a guy called Rich McDaddy, and he is one of the senior partners at Evelyn, right? Looks after the whole of the Southwest, some of the most wealthiest families in the UK, definitely, right? Building himself a little family office from the side of his desk, manages loads of people, 500 million, I think, under management. Ridiculous. He was sat next to me at Viva. There was do you know what? There's so many people that are now financial advisors, and we were sat on the telephones answering questions about pensions and investments with profit bonds from clients that just wanted a valuation, or IFAs that were phoning up that wanted to get some evaluations for pension transfers and all that kind of stuff. And we had our training there about what a bond is and what a with profits is, what life protection is. And it was really good training. And then Aviva put us through our qualifications. So it was FPCs at the time. So at FPC 1, Rich McDaddy, he's now chartered fellow running Evelyn Partners in the Southwest. So these other areas and these other avenues to go through and go in, they are there. And they are big organizations that will take on grads, right? Or people straight out of college or school, even some of these. So there's nothing wrong with going into a business, starting in a contact center, maybe for a pension company, an investment company, whatever, and cutting your teeth. I mean, Bristol's got Hargreaves Lansdown, which is a massive employer. Aviva, Royal Bank of Scotland, loads of companies, right? Go in there, get some experience, get your qualifications, and start to run that alongside what it is you're doing. I mean, that's a viable route in my eyes. Why do you have to 100% go straight into it? And I know we're crying out for more people, and there will be firms that are going to be taking people on because they're going to have to take people on from outside of the profession for it to grow, without a shadow of a doubt. But there are other routes, and like, I like your angle, get your qualifications and my angle then would be whilst in another financial type institution or another financial organization. And then when the time's right, to put yourself across into an advice role, and they'll look at that and go, oh, right, so you've had some experience, you understand a bit about pensions, you understand a bit about life protection. Mortgages is another great route.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Sam. I think one of the biggest things, a big top tip is get RO1 done and I think it's CF6. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that gets you in the door to be able to give mortgage advice. Now, companies may not use that and they may not do mortgages, but at least it shows that you are able then to take meetings. You can sit with clients. You are ready to have those conversations, which is a good start point for those soft skills that are so key to this. The exam's the easy bit, really, in a way. It's the kind of stuff that follows. So that's always my one takeaway. I should do more on LinkedIn to try and help answer questions. I see it all the time. I don't use it enough, to be brutally honest, but seeing that is always, what do I do? What's my top, anyone's got any strategies? That would be number one. And it's so key, and it takes a lot of pressure off of employers. I don't know if you've got any stats, Sam, on things like turnover and people kind of entering the industry and leaving within the same time frame. That's one of the things within teaching and whatever else that's so high, is because you kind of get through the door and then it's just not enjoyable for anybody, and the support's not there, that people leave after sort of 3 or 4 years, and I'm a prime example of that. So it's building a sustainable environment for people to not only come in but also have a level ground and a sensible kind of solid floor under them to kind of keep going. I hate using analogies, but you get my point.
I get it, mate. So where did you come in? So what was your route in then? So how did you get in? So do you knocked on people's doors, or?
So literally I spoke to are we naming names on the pod? Is that all right or not?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, of course. So a really lovely chap at a company called Switchfoot Wealth, called Sebastian. He gave me a lot of his time, and he's part of the network that we're a part of. So we're an AR of Sense Network, and he effectively put me in touch with Stuart, who is part of the network, and he runs Resolve. And I a little bit of luck, to be honest, Sam, in terms of the fact that they were connected and that Seb knew of what Stu was looking for, and he was able to then kind of link us together and kind of make that happen. But it took a long time for me to kind of scour the CII stuff to begin with, to find the right mentor for me. But in the meantime, I'd also got a list of all the IFA firms that were local to me as well. So I was ready to start firing off, go straight to the snake's head almost, and speak to directors and say, look, just doing a bit of research into your firm, really interested in what you do. And people know what to put into these things. We're not, there's no need to kind of bend people's ear on how to put an email together or call someone. But it's just that initiative. And I think it's one of those industries that if you've got a bit of initiative about you, then I think the luck comes, and you find that, you put yourself out there enough and you do enough stuff to kind of get your way through the door, that there will at some point be something that bites, and you get a bit of a fish on the end of the line, and luckily you kind of then have to
doesn't it look good?
100. What, to do it that way?
Yeah. Someone phoned me yesterday. Sam, you don't know who I am. I've just watched one of your YouTube videos and I really want to become a financial advisor. So I thought I'd just give you a call. And I was a bit busy. Then I thought, I tell people to do this sort of thing all the time. So I was like, fire away, you got 10 minutes,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just respected the fact that he uses initiative and got shit done. He went straight to me. Yeah. It's courage. And you rock up to a financial planning company and you say, look, I've done a bit of research. You're on the list. I'm really interested to find out a little bit about your business. By the way, I'm doing RO1, RO6. I'd love to be able to get stuck into a financial planning business and then work my way up. So maybe start with protection business. I know I can do that without the full level 4 qualifications. This is my background. This is what I've done. And this is why I want to become an advisor. Can I come in and have a coffee with you?
Absolutely.
It's really hard to say no to that.
Exactly.
It's really hard to say no.
100%. You'd have to be a bit of a dinosaur, or a monster rather, to kind of turn around to somebody and say, nah, I ain't got time for you, mate. Off you go.
But that's a good thing, because a no is a good thing. People worry about rejection too much, right? Go out and get 10 no's, because you're going to get a bloody yes at some point. Exactly. You must get the no's. Get rid of the no's, because then you can strike them off your spreadsheet. Like you said, right? Put a spreadsheet, 25 companies. Right. There's 25 opportunities. Who the hell is not right for me? And they're going to tell me straight away.
Exactly.
Bosh, right, they're not right. They're not right. They're not right. I guarantee you by the end of it, there'll be something that's right. Or you will get really good steer and really good direction of what you need to do. Don't be afraid of the rejection. I give people this guide, right? It's on YouTube. I say it all the time. How to find a job in financial planning. If you want it, I'll put it in the show notes and someone can watch it or listen to it, right? 95% of people will not do it, right? Yeah. So be that 5% of people that will, and you will get something back. It's laws of attraction. Go out, you get something back. It always happens. I did a job when I was younger. I knocked on doors, right? That was my job. I didn't really go to university or anything like that. I left school, went and knocked on people's doors trying to sell them telecoms. Horrible job in the pissing down rain, right? I can imagine. And it's fucking commission based, even worse, right? And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? So and it was a simple thing, right? There's 100 doors, go and knock on 100 doors. If you sell to 5 of those, you're making £100 a day, I think it was.
But there's other 95 though, Sam. They're not permanently closed. And I think that's a really big thing in this industry as well, is finding that if you get a knockback, it might be that it's just not the right time for that firm. It doesn't mean they don't like you or that you're not a fit for them. And quite often, I found a lot of the time that luckily I didn't have to go too far down the kind of road, if you like, before I ended up meeting up with Stuart and getting set up at Resolve. But it meant that, some people were saying, look, I think it'd be great, but I just can't take you on at the moment. But in a year's time, I've seen how our firm has changed, and we've brought a few extra bits and pieces into the business. Just because it's not right at that time, it doesn't mean that you can't revisit and bang on that door again later.
100%.
And I'm sure that you can probably speak from experience on that, having done what you've just said you did. So I think, and again, it all comes back to being that little bit older. I believe if I started this job at 22, 23, fresh out of you, I wouldn't be doing it now. I wouldn't be doing it now because it's bloody hard. It's really fucking hard as a job. So trying to get to a point where you build a bit of resilience, build a bit of value, and kind of say, look, it's going to be a bit of a rough road getting in, but if you can just do what I think are really quite simple things to begin with, like a couple of exams, and kind of get yourself out there and start that process. If it was the other way around and I was saying, Sam, you got any jobs? And you'd be wanting to know, what have I done to kind of at least
Correct.
work to a certain percentage of where you want me to be beneficial to you.
Yeah.
And if you're going in there with 0, they're just going to give me the middle finger and tell me to jog on. Probably wouldn't, but so want of a better expression, it's not going to do you any favors. So why would you give me your time?
The old school approach, right? The proactive approach works. Now, there's a lot of people that would just go, well, I need to go find a job. So you go to a job board. Oh, there's loads of jobs. I've applied to 100 jobs and no one's come back to me. Right. And it kind of doesn't really work like that. Or I've gone to 5 recruitment agencies and they haven't got a job for me. I'll tell you why they haven't got a job for you, because you haven't got the experience their clients are willing to pay a recruiter for. Simple as that. So I can't place somebody who really wants to be a financial planner and has brilliant transferable skills, but has no qualifications or done anything about actually becoming a financial planner. There is a thought process here where it's like, don't be entitled. Don't think that just because there's a need that you are needed, right? You put some energy and effort into actually being wanted. And that means getting to know you, yourself, what your skills are, and articulating that in multiple ways. So following on LinkedIn, connecting with people, commenting on posts, reaching out to those people, sending an email, picking up the telephone, knocking on somebody's door, getting a qualification, joining a community. If you do all those things, something's going to happen. But if you just expect to land on your lap and people to give you a job, it's not going to happen. So change your mindset, be the hunter. Stop kind of like thinking I have to go and apply for a job online. No, you don't. Just because there's a job advert on there, that's not the way you have to apply, right? There are more than one way to apply, and there are more impactful ways to apply. There are different ways to do it. Like LinkedIn's an amazing one, right? So I want to be a financial advisor. Great. Well, go out and connect with 100 financial planners in your geographical location. Go out and connect with as many power planners and as many administrators. Build your little network on LinkedIn. Pay for Sales Navigator. You can see the size of the companies, where they're located, how many people are in the business, turnovers, how much attrition, how many people they've lost, all that kind of stuff, right? Go and get that. It's free for a month. Go and do that and follow 100 companies and start to comment, share their posts and reach out with messages. By the end of that month, 2 months, right, you will have some relationships and you will be able to then hopefully go out and visit them. If they don't reply to you, then you know that maybe they're not LinkedIn active. And in fact, LinkedIn Navigator will tell you the last time that they were online. So if you're sending a message to somebody who hasn't been online for a year, they're probably not going to respond to you, right? Yeah. So you might want to be able to pick up the telephone to that person or send an email to that person or go to their website, right? That's another place, great place. Go to their website, look at what they're up to. Who's in the business? Who's not in the business? Are they still there? It's a job, mate, finding a job.
Yeah, it's big time.
You're learning skills as you do it. So when you actually go to the meeting with that person, you can turn around and say, do you know what I did? This is how I did it. This is what I did. I did this. And I was in the community at NextGen. I was in the community at Financial Planner Life. I listened to an episode with Jack and he said this. And they'll be like, I had an email recently. Sam, just want to say you're doing an amazing job. This is an SJP guy. Someone came in from the armed forces, wanted to be a financial planner. We sat him down, but he started articulating all the episodes that he had listened to with you and your academy.
Oh, amazing.
And I just wanted to say you're doing an amazing job of educating people, because he came in and he had something interesting to say. And I was like, that's amazing. So obviously, don't just expect it happens, right? You got to make it happen. But whilst you're making it happen, and it's horrible and uncomfortable sometimes, stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? And making calls and all of that kind of stuff. But that's part of the job of being a financial advisor. So chin up and get on with it. That's a skill set. Learn it.
That is definitely a lot easier to do if you're doing something else at the same time. So if you're going in a bit later, you're likely going to be working or you're going to be doing something else. And having it to do it yourself, you need a bit of money, you need a bit of kind of safety net under you. So I would always be recommending people that if you're going in a bit later, do it while you're working, doing something different, because you're not under then stress of if you don't find something from day one, it's okay. It's going to be a bit painful. It's going to hurt. You're going to have to spend some time doing it. But like you say, everything you said there, it's something will give. If you kind of, cast off enough nets, you will eventually catch a fish. And, it's kind of proof really that it does happen and it does work. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy industry to get into, but I think people could probably help themselves as much as possible to at least stand a chance of having somebody turn around and say, yes, I'll give you a chance, or yes, or at least give you my time.
So 3 years in, how has it gone for you then, working in financial planning? How have you found it?
I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything and I'm really good at it, because I'm not, because otherwise I'd have probably set up on my own and be earning hundreds of £1,000s a year, and that's probably a successful thing to me, I guess, in a way. I'm not there, nowhere near it. The hardest thing I find is the same as everybody. It's doing it long enough, building up enough relationships to generate organic referrals. And I think for me, the satisfaction of this job comes from an email from a client to say, just had a chat with so-and-so that I work with. He's going to get in touch with you because I've recommended you to him. Now that to me is a massive, here's a bowl of ice cream, that's a treat, that's a real kind of, you've done something right there to make that happen. And that to me at the moment doesn't happen enough. So I'm having to kind of deal with the kind of patience element of it, working on different ways to start thinking about using marketing a bit more effectively. I think as a company, we need to probably do a little bit more around what we're doing at the moment to kind of build on that and generate that organic, growth. I don't know the next thing about marketing, Sam, to be honest. So I'm probably sounding like an absolute moron when I talk about it in front of you. But that's the hardest part is building that reliable network where you've got 2, 3, 4 referrals a month coming in from existing clients. I whinge about it. Stuart will tell you that I sit there and I chew his ear off about how it's not happening and what am I doing wrong. And, I put so much time and effort into relationships, and I'm constantly speaking to, the whole 80-20 rule type thing. I'm constantly kind of employing that. And it's just not quite happening. So you then have to kind of sit back and go, well, actually, it will in time. It takes years for those sorts of things to come through. And in the meantime, we've got to work on other ways to start bringing some other stuff through. So a lot of trial and error. I think I'm quite fortunate in that everybody that we work with at Resolve, we're all very like-minded. I've got a couple of genuine mentors at the company that I see personally as mentors and, from a work perspective. And I'm quite fortunate to have that. So I'm not sitting here from a position saying everybody can do it, because I've been quite lucky, I think. So yeah, in terms of things that have gone well, I've always kind of set targets each year to kind of think I need to bring in X number of clients a quarter, X number of clients a year, or, and on the other side of that, an AUM figure. And I feel as though I'm at peace with that at the moment, potentially kind of aligning what's realistic with what's just not achievable. Mm-hmm. That's taken a while to get to the bottom of and get my head around. But I just love the whole building of relationships with people. And I quite like the challenge of being a younger advisor, because I do kind of see, you kind of have somebody say to you, look, I'm looking for some advice. The chances are they're speaking to sort of 3 or 4 other people potentially. And I know that I'm probably going to be the youngest face that they see. And I like that, because I know that at that point I can kind of start saying to them around the whole long-term piece of it, looking at the relationship, they're going to know me and work with me until they're probably no longer on the earth, which to them is obviously a plus, because they've built years and years of trust and knowledge with me, rather than having to chop and change with a retired advisor every 2 years because they've moved on and they've got to work with somebody different. So I like that, and I'm building ways to get that even stronger. But believe me, I've got absolutely nowhere near everything figured out. I don't know what my next long-term move is. I think there's an element of sometimes you always want to know what the next thing is. So for me at the moment, I've knocked off sort of 2 or 3 of the chartered level 6 exams. I'm not chartered yet. I plan to be, but 2 years ago it was right. I've done level 4. Now it's level 6, but it's like, just get good at what you need to get good at. And then the rest will come when there's more, time and it's more suitable to do that, because being chartered versus not right now, clients don't really care ultimately. The firm being chartered is useful, of course it is, but ultimately they want to know that I'm doing a good job, and they want to work with me, rather than me saying, here's another bit of paper that I've got. They don't give a shit. It's not crucial to them.
How much are you doing in the B2B space?
Not a huge amount, to be brutally honest. From my level anyway, on a sort of separate company level, as far as I know, it's kind of similar. We all kind of employ relatively similar tactics. So not a lot, Sam, to be honest, from my side. There's lots of things I look at on a quarterly basis and think, this needs to be better. I need to be better. I need to be doing more of this, less of that. Looking at what's working from a kind of lead generation perspective, what isn't. And the beauty of where we are, I think, is that we get the flexibility to be able to do those things and try things and fail at things, which again is quite a fortunate position to be in. So, in short, not a huge amount.
But everything you were saying, is about it is about failing forward, right? You're going to fail so much, and it's about failing forward. So failure is a bit of a negative word, isn't it? It's just learning, mate. You're just
Yeah.
finding your path, and you're learning, and you're experiencing what it's like to be an advisor. It's when you get into the mindset that, oh shit, this is hard, or oh no, I'm getting another door shoved in my face, or another no. It's the mindset of, right, okay, well, what did I learn from that? What could I have done differently? What could I have asked for some feedback? How can I learn from this situation? How could I go into it next time completely different, with a different approach? And you just start to really fine tune your approach, and it is just repetitive over and over and over and over again. And that is anything when it comes to business development, not just financial advice. It could be any job. It is just getting up and going out there and speaking to as many people as you possibly can. I've just started at Hoxton, and I look at my diary and the financial planner life, and it's always full, right? I've always got people in my diary. I'm always talking to people, always. Here's an interesting one for you, right? And things take time. I set the financial planner life up 3.5 years ago as a podcast, right? To help me with the marketing of my recruitment company. So I'm joining Hoxton. Chris Ball was a guest on my podcast 3 years ago. He's the CEO of Hoxton, right? So a guest on my podcast. I've got 3 people that are hopefully joining me. Each one of those people have been in my podcast over the last 3 years. Someone's just joined. He was on my podcast. When I went out to Dubai, the companies that I met that were super interested in me coming on board were on my podcast. In fact, one of them I placed into Dubai years ago, and now he's running his own company. If I go through all these relationships that are now coming to me, they were formed years ago.
Okay.
So the people within my community, the tribe that I'm building, the people that I surrounded myself with and touch base with, right? They didn't buy from me, or let's say, they weren't something of value for me. Now, value is like not just money, right? It's connection, it's whatever, introduction or whatever, until later on. But they will be if I touch base and let them know I'm here, which is why I create content. So not only does my content now, like yesterday, I had 7 people contacted me asking about working in Dubai, all brilliant advisors. One woman contacted me via Instagram. She had nearly 30 million under management. Transferable.
Right.
It takes time to build an audience. It takes time to build a community. It takes time to build relationships. But if you keep doing it, right, it happens. You keep asking for referrals. You keep asking for information, insight, expertise. Can you link me in with somebody? Can you connect me there? Can you teach me about what you do as an accountant? Can you teach me what you do as a solicitor? You know, if you're into a specific niche, go and speak to somebody within that niche that you share an interest. If you're a gamer, why not become the financial planner to the gaming community? If you play golf, set up a golf society. One of the chaps who works for Hoxton,
You don't want to see me on a golf course, Sam.
No,
I don't think the course wants to see me on it either, to be fair, mate.
he set up a community of his golf, right? And he loved playing golf. And in the end, right, people started knowing he was a financial advisor. He wasn't even talking about it. He was just networking for the long game and then networking for the short game in other areas. What are you doing about networking for the long game? What are you doing about building a community? What are you doing about building a tribe? How are you communicating with these people? Are you dropping them information? Are you putting videos out? Are you putting podcasts out? Are you connected with them on LinkedIn? Are you checking in with them to see how they are at specific times of the year where they might need you?
Yeah. It's a full-time job, isn't it? I mean, you might only see a client
it's a job
for 3 hours a year.
Yeah.
Maybe even less than that. But the actual work that you put into that is a lot more. And that is something that is, you have to learn. And I've had to learn quickly that is so crucial to success in this industry. And you can always you go to bed every night and think, I could have done more. I could have done this. I could have done that. I could have done not done that, or whatever. And it's that you don't really switch off from it because you're constantly looking at the next thing and how long is this going to take and how many years have I been working with this person and they've never referred anybody. Why haven't they referred anybody to me? What's the problem?
Jack,
what am I not doing?
One thing I would say to you at this point, right? And I'm 42 years old. Yes, my first job is in financial planning. Actually, I'm 42 years old. I didn't want to be a financial advisor. I enjoy what I do, which is creative social marketing to drive client engagement and candidate engagement, networking, partnerships. That's me. That's my strength. What you just said a second ago, it will never change. It will never change. I just walked into a really good job. I got financial planner life. I just sold my recruitment company. My wife's still telling me to stop putting so much stuff on your plate because you're stressing, you're anxious, you're worried. And I am. I'm always like it. I could always do better. I just had someone tell me a minute ago. I said, "Oh, I've been here two weeks. This is what I've done so far." And he's like, "Oh my God." And you're worried about like feeling like you're not doing enough. And I was like, yeah. So you'll always feel like you're not doing
enough. Is that
enough.
a personality thing, do you think, Sam? Or is that just something that is constantly on your mind because of what you do? Or do you think that's just the way that certain people are wired and never can get beyond that?
I think growth-orientated, ambitious individuals that also suffer, and I would say the word suffer is wrong, but are future thinkers, not anxious, but future thinkers are often that way.
Okay.
People that are quite comfortable, quite introvert, quite relaxed and seek comfort are not that way. But they might whinge and moan and worry about other things. I do shit about it. I got a great rig for 42 years old. I can get up and go and run. I can get up and go and run for half a marathon right this second, mate, if you ask me to. No problem at all. Go lift some serious weights, right? I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do all those things because I want to be the best version of myself I possibly can, because I'm a future thinker, because I'm ambitious. You've just got to watch out toxic ambition, like when ambition becomes self-deprecating. So you have to catch yourself beating yourself up for not being the best right now, and that you are actually working towards something that will never be the best. It's just ongoing self-improvement. There is no fucking line to cross over.
So it's a mirage, isn't it, in the desert?
Yeah. You know, it's always the journey to the top of the mountain that's the most enjoyable. When you get to the top, it's not that great.
But then you often think, what's next? And I think that's a trap to fall into in this industry as well. Is, you know, like I said with the exams, it's like, right, now it's chartered. Now it's potentially, you know, what am I going to do in 10 years' time? It's just
the whole compare and despair thing.
Absolutely relentless. Yeah, absolutely. And you
which is why you must, and this is why the profession needs to also adopt a little bit more about wellness and mental fitness and mental health, because it's the way we think that dictates how happy and successful we're going to be. And if you don't know it internally and know yourself, you're going to struggle. If you don't know what those triggers are that set you off to feeling like when you're on your pillow at night thinking, oh, I could have done, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. It's just a thought process. On that note, I've got to jump off because I've got to jump on another call, but it's been really lovely talking to you. And I'm really pleased you got into the profession. Sounds like you are on a journey to success. It sounds to me like you've done some really good things. And if Jack could meet Jack 3 years ago, what would Jack say to Jack 3 years ago? And what would Jack 3 years ago say to Jack today?
3 years ago, I would have probably sort of told myself to strap in because it's going to be a fucking bumpy ride. Yep. And the other way around would be that it is a bumpy ride, but it's not quite as bumpy as it could have been. When you kind of worry about stuff that could happen, it's not quite as bad as it seems. But, you know, some aspects of it are harder than others and some are easier, basically.
Do you think Jack would go, fair play, mate? So Jack 3 years ago would look at you and think, wow, fair play.
Yeah, and I think probably my wife would now as well. I think back then she wasn't so keen on it. But yeah, and I think a lot of vindication from others is always quite, to me, I always quite like that. And myself being important as well, but I think, you know, having that from other people is also quite a big thing. So, yeah, it's a tough world, it's a tough industry, but you know, a few tweaks here and there, and I think everyone would have a fun time. But thanks for having me on, Sam. Absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, Jack. Appreciate it.
Cheers.